Dear Jack, March the 12th, 2022. If you hadn't drunk yourself into a far too early grave, you would be 100 today. You left it to us to blow the candles out and to celebrate. Fragile, jangled, women posed a problem for you. Today is a good time to acknowledge your maternal line and to name the women who are in it. We can go back 10 generations to start with. You knew about how echoes and resonance pass down through generations and how the essence of the spirit is passed on to those who can carry it and how it never goes away. You carried some of these women in you, even if you didn't know it. For the line, we start with
Francoise, who had Mary Magdalene, who had another Mary Magdalene, who had Marie Josette, who had Marie Catherine, who had Geneviève, who had Madeleine, who had Adeline, who had Adeline, who had Louis, who had your mum, Gabrielle Ange. Françoise, who had Mary Magdalene.
Françoise left Normandy for Quebec in 1635 with a large group of Catholics tempted over by the company of 100 associates. She lived her life in the narrow corridor between the control of the company and the Jesuits. After 7 years, Françoise had Mary Magdalene, who lived until she was 70, 20 years longer than her mum, and who soon adapted to the impact of the immigration of the 800 filles de roi sent over from France to provide French wives for French men in the colony. Mary Madeleine had a daughter also called Mary Madeleine, who didn't do so well. She lived 15 years less than her mum through the times of the French-Indian Wars, which could have been a threat for her. She moved away from Quebec and had a daughter called Marie Josette in Rivière, or at Ouel, some way back along the St. Lawrence River. 3 of Marie Josette's 5 children died, leaving Marie Catherine, who became your great-great-great-great-grandmother, and her brother Pierre Charles, 7 years her elder. Marie Catherine was just 8 years old when her mother died, a very young age to make sense of herself in the world without a mother. Her daughter was named Geneviève. Genevieve's existence is only minimally recorded with an approximate birth year. Was this a fall from grace from the church? 10 years after her mother died, Geneviève was 25 and was married. 5 years later, she had a daughter, who she named Madeleine, a family name and a tie-in to her great and great-great-grandmothers. Madeleine had the first Adeline early-ish in the 1800s. Adeline married in 1848 and had her Adeline in 3 years later. Adeline married before her 20th birthday. She broke the maternal line by having the boy, your grandfather, Louis Levesque, who put things right by having Gabrielle Ange, your mum.
Who had another Mary Magdalene, who had Marie Josette, who had Marie Catherine, who had Geneviève, who had Madeleine, who had Adeline, who had Adeline, who had Louis, who had your mum, Gabrielle Ange. Françoise, who had Mary Magdalene, who had another Mary Magdalene, who had Marie Josette, who had Marie Catherine, who had Geneviève, who had Madeleine, who had Adeline, who had Adeline, who had Louis, who had your mum, Gabrielle Ange, who had Mary Magdalene, who had another Mary Magdalene, who had Marie Josette, who had Marie Catherine, who had Geneviève, who had Madeleine, who had Adeline, who had Adeline, who had Louis, who had your mum, Gabrielle Ange.